from New York City. So today is election day. Did you vote? I did. And the turnout was very, very light in Manhattan. The turnout for Republicans was even lighter. All four of us showed up to vote. And the ballot was, I wish I could have taken a copy of the ballot because it's further proof that we've become a dictatorship, a fascist country in certain places. Now, for those of you who don't live in New York, you know about the Biden administration fascism. But you don't know about the special fascism of living in a one-party dominated state with a crooked government at the city and state level and a kind of completely compromised judiciary on political issues. So here's the indication on the ballot that would tell you that. Here I am in the middle of Manhattan, one of the best known places in the world, one of the most densely populated places in America, if not the most. I had no choices for judges. There were 5 judge candidates on the ballot, 3 for the Supreme Court and 2 for the civil court. So isn't that great? Very, very democratic. We elect our judges. But that's part of 1984 Marxist bull. Lying. The words mean the opposite. So we're actually non-democratic. Because, well, let's start off with the fact that all 5 of these Democrats had no opponents. They're followed on the ballot by like so many parties it makes your head spin. None of those parties nominated even Joe Jockenfleister. Nothing. I mean, you could have put a dog up. But the Democratic district, the Democratic county leader, not going to allow that. So they say the judges are elected, like the half-wit that's doing Trump's trial. You know, the one who smiles and has the law clerk sitting on his lap. They say that he's elected. He's been elected 3 times. Unbelievable. He's never had an opponent. So has he ever been elected, really? The 5 that were on my ballot today, they'll be on there for 14 years of deciding cases. They weren't elected. They're there for only one reason. The Democratic county leaders selected them and put them there. What do you think happens if the Democratic district leader wants them to decide a case in a certain way? You think a district leader might do that? If you don't, you know what we used to say in New York about people like you? If you don't understand that happens, I got a bridge to sell you because you're so damn naive. They owe their life to one person who is a political hack, the Democratic county leader. And I'm entitled to say that because I put some of them in jail. They are completely political. They are at best conniving. And when they're the normal Democrat in a Democrat-dominated city for 1,000 years, they're crooked. And they put the judges on the bench. You don't, because you don't get an opponent to vote against them. They get on the bench the way they put people in office in China, the way they used to do it in the Soviet Union, or in the case of when they wanted to run people against Putin, they just took everybody off the ballot. That's what the Democratic Party does in New York. I don't know what it does in your town, but in my town, I mean, every once in a while, they'll have somebody can run against a judge, every once in a while. I mean, I'll go check if I bet there are no Republican judges in Manhattan. And I have very, very few in Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx. The only place you would find any would be in. So you've got all these judges. Everybody thinks they're elected, and they never had an opponent. And you wonder why this guy is so damn political. He's so damn political because he is a creature of the disgusting Democratic machine in Manhattan. He began his career himself as a law clerk. That's the way it always begins for these hacks. They begin as a law clerk on the court they're eventually going to get on that is controlled by the Democratic district leader. He decides who gets on the court. Then when he puts you on the ballot, it's a foregone conclusion. You're going to win. And then they all say you were elected, except they don't mention the fact you never ran against anybody. Like Erdogan, the one who smiles at strange times, gets very, very angry at Trump and seems to be very defensive about having his law clerk sitting on his lap. Sorry. Now, I was being sarcastic. She sits right next to him. I was a law clerk to a United States district judge, which is a very different thing than a New York State Supreme Court justice. And everybody in the legal profession will tell you that. I was taught in law school, at NYU Law School in the 1960s. Don't ever expect a New York Supreme Court justice to give you a fair opinion on a political case. You might get some good ones on other cases, but they owe their life to the Democrat Party, and they're not going to cross the party. Because if they cross the party, first, they go nowhere. They won't be renominated. They'll never get on the Court of Appeals. If it's on the civil court, they'll be stuck there forever until their term is over. And then some of the other judges will make life really miserable for them, particularly where it comes to Trump, where they'll also be socially ostracized. So if this guy were to wake up in the middle of the night and say, boy, I really screwed up the valuation of Mar-a-Lago, which he did because he's a jackass, $18 million for Mar-a-Lago, author? Would you get that from the law clerk? Well, we're going to tell you about the law clerk. You're going to find out that not only shouldn't she be there, but if these allegations are true, she should be the one having the hearing with the Bar Association, not me. But she's not going to get it because she's in the specially protected group when you have a dictatorship like we have in New York, a Democrat dictatorship. They've got it in Chicago. They've got it in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. They've got it in St. Louis, Missouri. They've got it in Atlanta, Georgia. Gee, those are the places where the election was fixed. I wonder why. Because they control the judiciary. So today we have elections. Hopefully more Democratic small d than in New York, where I could have been in Russia with this election that I went to. 6 people on the ballot, 5 unopposed. The poor Republican running for the city council got a guts. I mean, he'll come up with about 20% of the vote because they'll just go in and they won't even bother. They're just going, boop, 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 Democrat. And when they walk in and do it, I actually watch them. They look a little. Have you ever seen any rendition of Pavlov's dogs? The experiment, Pavlov's dogs. Well, they look like Pavlov's dogs. They go like this: Democrat. Well, largely because they don't even see a Republican on the ballot anymore. At one time, at least, like I ran. I'm going to tell you one fact about New York that should make you feel good or bad. I don't know. Abraham Lincoln lost New York City twice. Twice. This city is so damn Democratic for so long they didn't even vote for our best president. And we were on the side of, we were on his side in the Civil War. But he was a Republican. Now, the state voted Republican. And the state has at times been a very good Republican state. I mean, we produced Teddy Roosevelt, for example. The city has been a piece of crap as a political entity since Tammany Hall. They never change it. Ed Koch was a reformed Democrat who tried to change it. He himself was honest, and I put most of his administration in jail. I mean, he had some of the biggest crooks, really big, gigantic crooks, making millions. Well, so today we got to look at a couple of elections. And I don't know, maybe we'll get, I know they close in Virginia at 7. Don't they, Ted? I've always seemed to recall they close early in Virginia. So Virginia, you've got Youngkin, who they're making a big deal out of because they say this will determine whether he runs. So he has a 5-seat edge in the Senate. And I think he has a 4 or 5 seat deficit in the House of Delegates, which I think should be called the House of Burgesses, but that's okay. They think he can pick up those 5 seats, and therefore have both houses in which he could get therefore he could get a lot of stuff done because they block everything. And of course, they're having a big battle on 2 issues, right? They're having a big battle on parental rights in school, because that's where McAuliffe made the unbelievably, I think, revelatory comment that the parents should really have nothing to do with education because they don't know anything about education. Parents should just stay out. Now, McAuliffe may not know it because McAuliffe is in politics not for ideology, but to take money and make money. He's the one who was selling the Lincoln bedroom. So this guy is, this is Clinton slime. And so I don't really attribute to him that he realizes that he's just repeating Marxist garbage. The Marxist first principle, second principle, third principle of Marxism is the state takes control of the children. And the state knows better about the children than you do as their parents. You're a hindrance, because you may start thinking about the best interest of the child. You got to think about the best interest of the communist state, not the child. The child is unimportant and irrelevant. Your first loyalty should be to the communist enterprise, right? No God, no love of wife or love of husband or love of children comes before. If they want you to kill your kid, you got to kill your kid. So they want to create a society like that. So the main goal, the optimum goal, is to get that kid out of your hands at 2 years old and train him in a state school. Like you see, Hitler was also a Marxist. He just went in a different direction. Remember, he and Stalin were allies for a long time. And when they were allies, we were kind of stalemated because the communists in the Roosevelt administration didn't know what to do about Nazi Germany. That's when we wouldn't help Jewish people, because the communists were on the side of the Nazis because Stalin and Hitler were allies. And it wasn't the communists who broke up the alliance. It wasn't Stalin who broke it up. It was Hitler who invaded Stalin. So this idea that communism and Nazism aren't very much related is very, very ignorant. But so is most of our teaching of history nowadays. So there'll be a race in Kentucky between Daniel Cameron, who's the attorney general, and the governor, Andy Beshear, who is sort of an out-of-place governor. He's a Democratic governor in a Republican state. He won by only 1% the first time, but he has throughout his governorship been fairly popular, although on a couple of issues sort of out of sync with the state. So let's see what happens there. In Mississippi, you have a Republican governor named Tate Reeves, who is running against Brandon Presley, who apparently his claim to fame is he's some distant cousin of Elvis. So I don't get this. I mean, Mississippi will vote for a Democrat because he can swing his hips or something? I mean, what is he going to play a guitar and swing his hips? And everybody's going to go, ooh, ooh. He's like an eighth cousin of Elvis. You think Elvis would have been a good governor? I don't know. And then in Ohio and Pennsylvania have got 2 interesting races we want to know the answer to. Ohio has a conflicting amendments to their state constitution. One would give everyone a constitutional right to abortion. Remember, the Supreme Court said there's no constitutional right to an abortion, but a state can treat it any way it wants. So a state could create a right to an abortion. That's what they're trying to do in Ohio. On the other hand, there's a provision on the ballot that prohibits abortion before fetal viability. So, I mean, we got to see which ones pass. And then in Pennsylvania, they've got a state Supreme Court contest. That's the Supreme Court that made probably the most idiotic, corrupt decision I can think of, for which it should go down in history as a perfect example of how the courts no longer make legal decisions; they vote Democrat and Republican. I'll tell you what it was. Not worth going into the details of it right now, but it's a decision you could only make if you were corrupt, and it was 4-3 Democrat. But now the court is 4-2 Democrat, and there's a big contest between Caroline Carluccio, who is the Republican candidate, against Daniel McCaffery, who's the Democrat candidate. And says this was a state that Biden narrowly won in 2020. I almost got sick to my stomach when I saw that. This is the state where Trump was ahead by $800,000 votes when we went to bed on election night. This is the one where I was asked, when will the ballots finish being counted? And I said, when Biden wins. Crooked as all get out, proved a number of different ways, obstructed every way possible. So those are the things to look for tonight. I don't know how much they're going to give you on what happens, a year from now. Then maybe that thing on abortion might. Though I think abortion has been overwhelmed by the economy and where foreign policy is usually not an issue. It's a combination of him doing everything wrong in foreign policy, as predicted by Obama's Secretary of Defense, Gates. He warned the American people, this guy hasn't been right in his entire life on anything having to do with foreign policy. That's an extraordinary thing for a cabinet member of Gates's distinction to make. And I see it as his sort of constitutional obligation to his country to warn you, please don't make this idiot president. And this is before he was demented. This is when Joe was just the dumbest man in the Senate, for sure. And to me, the dumbest man I knew. So let's see how the war is going. Okay. So, before that, we'll do this later. Let's see. We'll see. So what has happened now is that the Israelis say that and I say this because the Palestinians dispute it. The Israelis say they have basically gotten into the heart of Gaza City. And the problem is, of course, Gaza City, of any place on the Strip, has more tunnels than it probably has streets, right? And I want you to take a look at what these tunnels look like. Be kind of interesting to see what they look like.
Push it up a little bit.
Push
it up so you can see it. A tad bit, man. We'll have something.
I want you just to take a look at what it looks like, okay? So look at the very, very top, and that's the street level, right? So and these things can be located like a gigantic tunnel system is located below the Al-Fa hospital, which is the largest hospital in Gaza. The Israelis have actually partially bombed it already, but obviously not completely. And it's a really delicate thing because you're going to kill innocent people and you're going to kill patients. But right below them are the headquarters of Hamas, and also one of the connecting central places for the entire system. And what I'm showing you now on the map, which looks a little bit crooked here. Is that better?
Yeah, there we go, man.
All right. Well, this is what it looks like. So if you go up to the top, there, you'll see Gaza and Israel. They just want to show you that Israel has built tunnels so they can access it through Israel when and if they have to. But so if you go in the tunnel, you see you go down, you come down to here, and this is where they have weapons, plans, operations. And this is where they're holding hostages. And when you go further down, this is really for the high command down here and the soldiers. So to really clean this out, they've built bomb busters. They've built these bombs. Now, I don't know exactly if they're lethal or they are incapacitating or both, but they'll blow them into the tunnel and they'll take people out. So when they do have to go in, they will have less resistance. Their plan is to first take Gaza and then over a period of time take the tunnels. They're not going to invade the tunnels. So they'll take the city. They'll take out as much of Hamas as they can above ground. And when they command above ground, that's when they're going to proceed to take the tunnels out. Of course, all along the way, Biden will be holding Netanyahu's coat saying, please don't do it, please don't do it. Stop, let's have a ceasefire. That's the only thing that happens now when he calls Netanyahu, because he can't really talk much. So they just have him say, ceasefire, 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 ceasefire. That's all he says. And then somebody like Stinking Blinken gets on and says, yeah, ceasefire, 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 ceasefire. That's all they say, because they are obviously, the American people are allied with Israel. In fact, I think about 80%. But the Biden administration is clearly allied with Iran. That's their real friend, because that's the one they give the big money to, not Israel. And they give money to Iran, despite the fact that Iran is completely dedicated to destroying Israel and the Jewish people, which makes them anti-Semitic. It makes Obama a thoroughgoing, massive anti-Semite, since he used to give him cash. He used to give them cash to finance their mission. Now, there is no doubt about their mission. There's no doubt they want to destroy Israel.
They chant it in the streets.
They want to destroy Israel. They want to kill Americans. They want to destroy the Jewish people. Now, anybody that gives a large amount, any money to people like that has got to be described as anti-Jewish. You want all the Jewish people to be exterminated, you're anti. I mean, this is what we call logic. This is what Democrats are incapable of, because logic leads you usually to the truth. And if we ever embraced the truth, they'd all be gone. The New York Times would fold up tomorrow. If we embrace the truth and we realize what big liars they are, what massive, disgusting, anti-American, harmful liars they are, they'd be wiped out in a minute. So they have to do everything they can to block logic. Let's try it one more time. You and I, all of us know that Iran is dedicated to destroying the state of Israel. It's in their documents. We know it because they repeat it every other day. Then occasionally they'll say destroy the Jewish people. And then very often they'll follow it with death to Americans. In fact, recently, when we gave them the $6 billion, they were so appreciative that they had a big rally in the street and said death to Israel and death to America. I guess we didn't give them enough. $6 billion wasn't enough. They can only kill a certain amount of Jews with that amount of money. They need more money to kill all the Jews. And I guess, Biden and Obama will give them enough money to kill lots of Jews, but maybe not every one. Now, I'm being sarcastic, but my sarcasm is realistic. Once again, you explain to me how you can give hundreds of millions or billions of dollars to a group of people, a country or a group of people that want to destroy the Jewish people and not be anti-Semitic. What am I missing? Please call me and tell me what I'm missing. Now, if I'm right, then the former President Obama was the biggest anti-Semite to have it hold the office of President of the United States, which makes him a disgraceful human being. And the present one only has the defense of being non-compos menace, meaning he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. And but I would think, I mean, he is a racist. Before he was non-compos menace, he was a thoroughgoing racist. But I never thought of him as being anti-Semitic or anti-Jewish. So that may be a function of his being manipulated by lots of anti-Semitic people around him, the way Bush was, because I think this whole breakdown in getting this Middle East settled started with Jim Baker under Bush, after the great Ronald Reagan came out of office, who would never have let it happen, and then got increased when Clinton fell in love with Arafat. Hard to believe that Clinton, you'd fall in love with a guy. You ever see what Arafat looked like?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I met him when I threw him out of the UN. I mean, he really was one ugly son of a.
Looked like Snuffleupagus.
Yeah, he smelled too. I mean, he looked like, and then he always had that same towel around. I never cleaned. He never took that towel off.
Snuffleupagus.
You know what I wanted?
Who are we talking about?
Arafat.
Oh, Yasser Arafat.
Yeah, the one who killed 27 Americans.
You threw him out of New York.
Yeah, I don't like people who kill Americans. What the hell's wrong with that? I don't like people who kill Americans. I didn't like that he threw Leon Klinghoffer in the river out in the Mediterranean Sea. He threw him out of his wheelchair. I don't like people who throw old men out of wheelchairs.
Did you go to Rabin's? Oh, sorry. Finish that story. Were you
He was at a concert to listen to one of the greatest pieces of music to emerge from Western civilizations, Beethoven's Ninth Symphony.
Here in New York, at the Lincoln
At the
Center.
Lincoln, and I raised the money for it. Nobody else raised the money for it. And I made a rule: no dictators there. I had to have a lot of UN crap there.
Unseemly people.
Oh yeah, come on! They beat up their wives. They don't pay their bills. They're. I mean, half those countries are crooked countries. But in any event, at least they weren't dictators who, as far as I know, didn't kill Americans. But Arafat killed 27 Americans, plus the most famous one being the killing of Leon Klinghoffer, which he demanded. He wanted a Jew killed. And I think they liked the idea that he was in a wheelchair because it made it like, it's like chopping the head of a baby off or something, which they also like to do. Arafat was a thoroughgoing terrorist. He changed when he realized he could con Clinton out of hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions, which he got. And then when he was faced with a solution, he turned it down because he wanted a war. So so Israel is making gains. They've gotten to the heart of Gaza City, and according to the Times or the Wall Street Journal, parallel to that, we are stepping up our pressure for a ceasefire. The more Israel succeeds, the more we want them to stop. It's going to be very hard for Bibi to get the job done, to wipe out Hamas. Now, could he do the job if we just left him alone and gave him, appropriate support? I mean, he wants like reasonable amounts of money. We're giving him $15 billion. The other guy, Zelensky, who is a creature of the Russian oligarchs, he wants another $60 billion on top of the $120 billion he's already gotten. And he hasn't shown progress in months. I mean, it's the war without end. Amen.
Well, Mayor, before we go on a break, Israel released some new footage of them going into Gaza. Would you like us to show your audience?
I would definitely like to show it, and then I'm going to show it to them on the map. I'll get that ready while you get that ready.
You got it.
Because We are now back, and I'm going to show you what they have accomplished. And the Hamas is putting out, like, they're making great strides. Yeah, you know what the Hamas is doing? Hamas is making great strides, killing their own people with the with the missiles that backfire. I really believe they may be killing more people in Gaza than in Israel now with their missiles. Because last night, I try to check every night, there were no casualties, even though they shot off 70, 80, almost every single one. Well, either every single one was cut off by Iron Dome, or it just went and hit some poor person in Palestine. So we're going to take a short break, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you how the Israeli army has pretty much kind of separated Gaza in half. The foundation delivers on its promise to do good and never forget the sacrifices America's greatest heroes have made for us. Heroes who risked their lives to keep our communities and our country safe. Heroes like United States Marine Corps Captain and pilot John Jeremy Sachs. Captain Sachs sustained fatal injuries when his military aircraft crashed during training, killing him and 5 other service members. He's remembered by loved ones as courageous, brilliant, and devoted to his career, family, and friends. John is survived by his wife, Amber, who gave birth to their second daughter 3 months after his death. Tunnel to Towers paid the mortgage on the family home for Amber and their 2 daughters. The foundation has helped over 1,000 military and first responder families navigate the worst of times by removing the burden of a mortgage payment. Our nation's heroes and their families need your help now more than ever. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. T2T.org. That's T, the number 2T.org. T2T.org. Please donate now. Welcome back to America's Mayor Live, and I have Christine Murray with me. Justine Murray. Justine Brooke Murray, right?
Yes.
Yes. I have her with me, and we're going to talk about anti-Semitism, and we're going to talk about the war. And but I just want to take you through just a little bit of what has been achieved, and I've been able to figure out with all the propaganda that comes out of the press, and they're trying to make it as if, you know, they're really resisting. Well, I don't know. This is pretty darn fast to get into Gaza City. So the Israelis invaded from the north, right up here in the north, here and here, 2 places. One of the people on Fox had it wrong. They had them invading only from one place, but Fox has kind of deteriorated. So so they invaded with 2 armies. Well, not 2 armies, maybe 2 divisions of the army in 2 places. And basically they met in the north of Gaza. And so they've surrounded the north of Gaza. They invaded again with 2 subdivisions of their army from the west, right here. And one went right to the road, the main road that goes north-south all the way through Gaza, and it has cut the road off. So now if you want to go north to south to Gaza, you got to deal with the IDF.
Yeah.
And I think they're probably, I mean, at first they only had about half of it cut off. You see that arrow there? I think they've gotten to the to the sea by now, to the Mediterranean, right there. So there's basically, you got a barrier right here. The second group, the larger number, went north to join the 2 armies that came down from the south. So you have 2 armies from the north coming into Gaza City, and you have 1 coming up from the south. They claim they have it completely surrounded. I think you saw some of the activity inside of Gaza City. They've destroyed a good many of the headquarters of Hamas. And the big thing left is the hospital. They've destroyed parts of the hospital, but they haven't taken out the whole hospital. And when I showed you that that tunnel description, so you just multiply that by about 50, and there are about 50 of those underneath that hospital. That hospital is the sort of the heart of the Hamas operation. And of course, they protect it with patience.
Yeah.
You got to kill patients to take out the Hamas operation that if you don't take it out, it can just come back and kill another 1,400 Israelis.
And that's what they do. And in fact, I wish we had this video, but just the other day, Hamas shot and murdered women and children and families trying to flee, trying to escape the area that the IDF is targeting, as the IDF warned everyone, get out of the way if you're an innocent civilian. And Hamas is killing their own people because they don't want their own people to leave. They want their own casualties up because they want to win the propaganda war as well. And unfortunately, they always win the propaganda war because that's just anti-Semitism. But that's how evil and sickening the leadership in Gaza is. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't realize that. So when you see all these civilian deaths, by the way, which are by Hamas, they're reported by the Gazan Health Ministry, which is run by Hamas. The numbers are probably inflated.
Oh, of course they are.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just as honest as Israel destroyed the hospital and not the backfire of the Hamas or the Palestinian missile.
Right.
I mean, and
Right.
that's been proven beyond any doubt, except to the satisfaction of Tlaib, who is a massive anti-Semite.
Oh, of course. She and the whole squad, Ilhan Omar, they've been anti-Semites from the get-go. But what really irked me, and we talked about this before when the fake hospital attack first came in the news, they immediately, every single mainstream media outlet immediately took the word of Hamas. And now we're seeing these same mainstream media outlets downplay this murder of this Jewish man who was in California. He was bludgeoned. Yep.
We're going to get to that in a few minutes. I want to ask you about that. But I want to show you on your first point how they do this. BBC has very good coverage of the war. Not that it's completely, that is honest. You know the first thing they put up today? Hamas claims it is inflicting heavy losses. That's the first thing on a big list of describing what happened today.
Yeah, anxious to tell you.
Now, that is probably completely untrue. And they know it's completely untrue because they know Hamas is not capable of telling the truth. They're the same ones who for 2 or 3 days wrote that Israel destroyed the hospital. They've had to correct it. But it's not as if they really correct it, because if they really corrected it, they never would have run this. The military wing of Hamas claims it has been inflicting heavy losses on Israeli forces and damaging Israeli military vehicles. Well, I'm sure they're damaging a few military vehicles. They don't point out that they're also damaging themselves with the 25% of the rockets that backfire and kill people, their own people.
Whoops.
It is said that over the past day, it had completely or partially destroyed a number of military vehicles near Beach Refugee Camp in Western Gaza City. Now, do you know where Western Gaza City is? It's all the way through Gaza, headed right to the... In other words, even if that's true, it would say that the Israeli army has penetrated 3/4 of Gaza and are basically at the Mediterranean. So the way they're talking about, if you want to look at the map, is right near the Beach Refugee Camp in Western Gaza City. That would be over here. See where my pointer is? To get there, you would have actually accomplished what I said they did, which is sever Gaza in half. So even if they took a loss there, and they don't point, and now the guy writing this should be able to understand that, should be able to look at a map and understand what I just said. in order to have destroyed the Israeli military near the beach, they have had to, the military has had to have crossed the entire Gaza, which is only 7 miles, by the way. And therefore, the Israeli claim that they have cut it in half and everybody else's is absolutely true. Okay, they took losses there. Probably they didn't. They probably didn't. And then in the northeast corner, they also did some damage in the northeast corner of Gaza, which means they have it surrounded. They're on the west of Gaza, and they're on the northeast corner of Gaza, and here's Gaza. And so, okay, they had some losses.
Right.
Now, the Israeli military says that it is operating deep inside Gaza, and Prime Minister Netanyahu says thousands of Hamas fighters have been killed. Now, they do say the BBC is unable to verify the battle claims, but why put the headline up there?
Of course, yeah. They only say
Why not
Hamas.
put up both? Hamas claims heavy losses. Israeli counters. Nope, because they are BBC is in the propaganda game, and why they like Hamas is absolutely beyond me. Absolutely beyond anything that I can possibly imagine. Here's a story, just a human interest story, human tragedy story.
Oh.
This young girl who's Jewish and Irish, and her name is Emily Hand. She is 8 years old. Emily was visiting a kibbutz. I want to show you again on the map where the kibbutz is. Can we look down here for a minute, guys?
Can we
She
get
was
the
at
map?
Beery Kibbutz, which is right here. Now look how close that is to where the war is now taking place, right? So when the Gazan terrorists came over, which they referred to as the militants, although they are officially recognized under British law and American law as terrorists. There's no reason you can't call them terrorists. That's what the law says they are. So she is right there, right on the border. That's where she was visiting. So and this is the lovely young lady right here.
We have the video. Should we play
She's
it?
so
That's the
gorgeous.
young lady right there.
Sweet girl.
Yeah, let her father explain. This is her father. Let her father explain it, because this breaks your heart when you hear this story.
Was told his daughter Emily had been killed in the Hamas attacks.
Oh, there she is.
Yeah.
His response 3 weeks ago was that of a loving father, wanting nothing but the best for his dear child.
Weirdest thing for a parent to hear that their child's dead and you're relieved. I knew she wasn't in Gaza. I knew she wasn't terrified out of her life. I knew she wasn't going to be in any more pain or stress. It was just all over for her.
The country, but the majority of us are here.
And yet in all the darkness, there's light. Tom's now been told there's no proof Emily is actually dead, with all the evidence suggesting she was taken to Gaza. That flame of hope that she might be home one day now banishes all fears.
You said a number of things. How do you feel about that now?
In some ways, I regret that interview.
Regret it.
Just because of some of the things I said, yeah. Some things that might have put her in danger. We move on. Now, the strong possibility that she's in Gaza, being held captive. Now it's hope. We can only hope that we get her back alive. It's her birthday this month, 17th. She's not even going to know it's her birthday. She won't know it's her birthday. There'll be no cake, there'll be no party, there'll be no friends celebrating. She'll just still be there living in terror every day. We just want her back. We want to see her again. We want to love her again, hug her again, kiss her again. Never let her out of my sight again.
I mean, I'm as a father and a grandfather, and I don't understand what the poor man's going through, or the wife. His wife, the wife has been very, very eloquent, and also the stepfather has been very, very eloquent, and they're all despite the fact that they're a split family, they're all working very, very hard to get her back. And there's every indication that she may still be alive. And she is with a friend and an older person. So maybe, just maybe. And I'd also like to relieve his guilt about his making it worse for her. What he was saying originally was, when he heard that she was dead, he was sort of rationalizing it and saying, given what these animals do, maybe it's better that she's dead.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they were raping children.
That first interview he gave, it was extremely intense. And he said, when I heard that she said, I screamed, yes, yes. Can you imagine?
Because he was hearing, up until then, he was hearing about chopping the kids' heads off, raping them, torturing them. I mean, they went ahead and they shot somebody, and then they tortured them after that. This was not, I'm going to say, a usual attack. This wasn't even a usual terrorist attack. The people on September 11 didn't do this. They crashed into the building and they killed people. Terrible. Ended their lives for no reason. They didn't torture them.
These monsters put babies in ovens.
And these idiots are marching for them. I don't get it. I just think they should all be put in a nut house. I thought we should have taken all those people going over the Brooklyn Bridge, get gigantic trucks and put them in all those nut houses are empty because we let them out.
They're evil.
We should put them in the nut house.
It's not even a matter of being crazy or being nutty. It's just pure evil at this time. I always say the Holocaust, it didn't start with the gas chambers. It didn't start with speech either. It started with willful ignorance, which is what we're seeing, and then blind obedience. So you have pure evil, people who are pure evil. They want to murder Jews. This has been the
2,000 years of this is enough.
The oldest hatred. And then with that, they want to destroy the West. So it's hating Jews, but also hating Jews with now wanting to destroy not just Jews, but then Christians, then Western civilization. But of course, it always starts with wiping out the Jews in the most brutal way possible. How can any college student?
I don't. Maybe they elect not to believe it. They don't pay attention. I have no idea. You were going to mention Paul Kessler. That's the 69-year-old man who was killed over the weekend. He was at a rally. It was a pro-Palestinian rally, but he was there representing the Jewish side, hopefully the American side, right? Well, not hopefully. I mean, we got a traitor of a president, but 80% of the American people to 85% of the American support Israel. It's just the communists and in the White House who don't.
But then there's a terrifying majority of young people who think that somehow you can justify the Hamas Holocaust. and that's the frightening thing, because young people are being turned against this country, turned against everything that is good and that is true. And it's an attempt to destroy us from within.
Here's the good thing about that. They're young and they can change their minds 40 times, and they will. When we get back a real American government again, it'll be easy to flip them around. I saw Ronald Reagan do this. When you get a great president who can lead, they'll start following. And you get Trump back, and you'll get a lot of them back. A lot of them, the older ones, are the ones who really know what they're doing. The hatred has been in their hearts for so long; it's never going to get out. The younger ones a lot of them are the product of manipulation. The college is the way we've let them be.
Coddling.
Yeah. I mean, they're not very useful people, but I mean, first of all, you wouldn't go on all these protests if you were useful because you have a job. You wouldn't be able to, right? Mr. Kessler was killed. He was struck in the head before he was knocked over. Are they having trouble trying to figure out if this is a hate crime?
They always have trouble when it comes to hate crimes against Jews, whites, and Christians. They always dance around, oh, well, we don't know yet. Well, the same outlets today that report, USA Today, New York Times, that said, well, we don't really know what happened. They actually reported that. We don't really know what happened. He just happened to get hit in the head with something. They reported the headlines, the way they phrased these headlines was as if this man just stumbled over drunk. Meanwhile, I pulled up all their headlines when George Floyd died, the original reportings. He was murdered by a black man.
This man doesn't have the background of George Floyd. This man doesn't have like 20 arrests or 30 arrests or hitting a pregnant woman or
saying he's going to kill the baby, pointing a gun at her belly.
Yeah, pointing a gun at a baby.
Yeah.
I mean, George Floyd died under circumstances that created all that. So we can argue over the circumstances, were they exaggerated, weren't they? But there's a lot to be said about it. The killing itself or the way he died, terrible. The rest of his life was a horrible life. The man was a horrible man.
They didn't even
But
let...
just because you get killed doesn't mean you're a good person.
They didn't even let you argue that, or else you were branded a racist. USA Today wrote a piece saying... any idea, any suggestions that he died of an overdose or that even contributed to it?
But he did.
Yeah, he did.
But he did. They finally released the real autopsy and he died of...
I always thought so.
Yeah.
But they
He
immediately...
didn't die of asphyxiation.
They still doubled down. They said, oh, that's misinformation. But here, reporting on this Jewish man who was murdered today, they said, well, we don't really know what happened.
Well, there was an autopsy and the autopsy ruled it was a homicide. And the cause of death was blunt forehead injury.
There we go.
Which means he was struck in the head. And there were witnesses that say he was struck in the head before he was knocked over. So this is, and there's no question he was representing the Israeli, Jewish, hopefully American side.
His head didn't strike
and that's why he was killed. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to have a balance of nature time. May I?
Device is something that you can plug into your television, and now you can use your television as a social television type experience. So in the Portal universe, you can watch your favorite content creators' videos, live streams, music. We also have TV subscriptions as well.
Subscriptions.
You can also
regular channels, all the sports.
Right, you can actually cut your cable from your cable subscription and get QUX TV on our QX TV boxes, and you can pay half the price that you're currently paying for your cable television subscription, and you can get all the best premium TV channels and more. I mean, it's really, there's so much on there, Rudy. I mean, you've seen it.
No, I've seen it and I use it, and it's good. I mean, it's just exactly the same except for half the price. Plus, nobody is finding out what I'm watching, and that's not being reported to anybody.
Right, so you have absolute privacy using this device, which you don't have on other devices out there currently on the market.
This is absolutely great. QUX.TV is how you can find out about it. QUX.TV.
Use promo code RUDY to receive $30 off.
Come on, Rob. It was balance of nature time. Balance of veggies, fruits, all you need. You don't have to worry about all the supplements and the 5,000 pills they advertise. And there's the one where the guy takes the pills with his wife. He can go play golf. Unfortunately, she can get out of the golf cart, but he can't. They got to do. They got. I can't remember who this is for. They're probably very nice people.
Too much fiber.
But would you please change that? Get a guy who can get out of the golf cart, please.
Show some college Hamas supporters. All of a sudden, they take balance of nature, and they're no longer terrorists.
Right.
It's a miracle. It's like the eat a Snickers bar commercial.
Yeah, they probably have too many Snickers bars. Snickers bars, I think it's more.
News out of Israel while you're doing balance of nature. Bibi Netanyahu says they have one of the top Hamas leaders cornered in Gaza City, ready to go in on him and take him
Oh,
out.
and Biden is probably calling him, telling
To
him,
stop. Tell him to
ceasefire,
stop.
time for a
Yeah.
ceasefire,
Yep. Yep.
time for a ceasefire.
That's right.
Gosh, we're going to kill one of the Hamas. What could happen?
Don't.
He was against killing bin Laden.
Mm-hmm.
He was against killing Soleimani. Soleimani specialized in killing American soldiers. There are hundreds of American families that don't have their child because of Soleimani. And this guy didn't want to kill him so he could go ahead and kill more Americans. I don't know what's wrong with these people. I don't know. And it's not just him. It's the damn Democrat party along with it, just like they went along with slavery. That's why they should do away with the darn thing and start a new one.
Well, Mayor Justine, I have a question for you. You see all these people protesting in favor of Palestine, right? The top 3 leaders of Hamas are worth $11 billion, but they let their people live
Well,
in
it's like
squalor.
Arafat.
Right. So why isn't anybody saying anything about them?
Because
They're
they're
not Jewish.
brainwashed, and
Do they even know that?
No, there are different groups that end up being the Hamas lovers or whatever you want to call them. They're the people who are that way because they are maniacal Islamic extremist terrorists. There are those who are communists who are taking advantage of it, much more than you think. A lot of this is orchestrated by China. Used to be by Russia and China with Iran. The people in Hamas aren't smart enough to do this. I mean, they're smart enough to have 25% of their missiles kill them. The Iranians are much smarter, and Hezbollah is a lot smarter. And this is orchestrated ultimately by China.
They're not
But I have to bring up one thing that you got to know before I go to Rudy Giuliani Confidential. On Rudy Giuliani Confidential, I'm going to show you why Allison Greenfield, who is the law clerk to Judge Engo Moron, or whatever the heck his name is, really should be investigated for massive political activity. Now, political activity by a person who is a judicial employee is by and large illegal. For example, the rules are you can't contribute more than $500 aggregate in any one year. So in 22, she contributed over $3,000. And in 23, she's already contributed over $1,000, both over the limit, both violating the law and the rules. She also participated in a massive amount of political activity, not the least of which included her running herself as a Democrat candidate for the civil court. It's a complete violation. You're supposed to separate the judiciary from politics. But she's a political active, and she's sitting right next to the judge. Now, I haven't been in court as much as I should in the last 10 years or so, but I don't ever remember the law clerk. I was a law clerk for 2 years. I never sat next to the judge. I used to sit down there. And when he wanted me, he'd call me up, and I would, never would go even behind him. I'd go up like the lawyers did. Or maybe we'd go over to the sidebar and discuss an issue, or if he wanted me to research something, but I wasn't there passing him notes all the time because he didn't know what the hell he was doing. I wonder which one came up with the 18 million for Mar-a-Lago, because that could be one of the stupidest decisions in the history of New York law. That thing is worth so much more than 18 million. It's absurd. It's absurd. Either she's a moron, he's a moron, they both are, or they're thoroughly corrupt. What she is, she's a political operative. So when Trump says this is a political hack sitting next to him, is exactly what she is. She's a candidate, Democratic Party, for the civil court. She hangs around the clubhouses. All of her contributions, 22 of them in 1 year, are to all these questionable Democrat boss clubhouses. And believe me, I don't think I have to convince you of this. New York City is a thoroughly corrupt Democrat dictatorship. Yep. You don't go anywhere here as a judge if you're not a Democrat. And if you rule against them, you're finished. Well,
it's like the new mob.
Well, we're going to sign off. And but those of you who would like, we're going to go into Rudy Giuliani Confidential. So God bless America.